In a vibrant city lived a remarkable woman named Peace. She had built her wealth with hard work, but behind her glowing public image, Peace faced a personal struggle. She was married to a man named John. John ran a local business that often struggled to make a profit. He admired Peace's achievements at first, but as time went on, his pride turned to jealousy. He couldn't understand why her luck seemed so much better than his. Peace, always caring, tried to support John in his business. She invested her own money, she shared tips and offered advice whenever she could, hoping to help him succeed as she had. But John did not take her advice well. Every suggestion she made felt to him like a reminder of his failures. He began to resent her advice, believing she was only showing off her success and trying to control him. In truth, Peace wanted nothing more than to see John happy and successful. She never realized that her kindness was fueling his jealousy, which grew stronger with each passing day. As months passed, John's jealousy turned into an obsession. He spent sleepless nights thinking about Peace's success. His mind became filled with dark, bitter thoughts. He couldn't bear to see her smiling confidently, surrounded by people who respected her. John began to believe that he was unlucky, that fate had been unkind to him. And so, he convinced himself that the only way to escape this feeling of failure was to find a way to take Peace's success for himself. But how could he, an ordinary man, possibly take her luck and wealth? One day, he heard whispers about a mysterious man who lived in the outskirts of the city, a herbalist who was known to have powers that could change people's fortunes. John felt a strange excitement. He knew that visiting the herbalist was risky, and he had heard stories about magic going wrong. But he was so desperate to change his life that he ignored any fear. If the herbalist can switch our fates, he thought, then I can finally have what I deserve. I will be the rich one, and Peace will know what it feels like to be in my shoes. Driven by jealousy and envy, John made up his mind. He would visit the herbalist. John prepared for his journey, where the herbalist's hut was hidden deep in the forest. He told Peace he had a business meeting out of town, hiding his true intentions. As he walked through the forest, his heart pounded with both excitement and fear. The thick trees cast eerie shadows, and the air was filled with strange sounds that made him feel as though he was being watched. After what seemed like hours, he finally reached the herbalist's hut. The small, dark structure was covered in vines and surrounded by candles. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and incense, and inside sat the herbalist, an old man with piercing eyes that seemed to see right through John. The herbalist listened patiently as John explained his wish. He wanted to switch fates with his wife, to take her wealth and luck and make it his own. The herbalist stared at him for a long moment, then spoke in a low, serious voice. Magic like this has a price, he warned. Once it is done, it cannot be undone. Are you sure you wish to go through with it? Without hesitation, John nodded. His mind was fixed on one thought. He wanted to be rich, and he was willing to pay any price. The herbalist then told him that the ritual would require something personal from Peace. Bring me a single strand of her hair, the herbalist said, his voice echoing in the dimly lit hut. John agreed. That night, while Peace slept, he carefully took a single strand of her hair and hid it in his pocket, feeling a strange thrill as he thought about his plan. The next day, he returned to the herbalist and handed him the hair. The herbalist began the ritual, chanting in a language John didn't understand as strange smoke filled the air. Before the ritual ended, the herbalist looked at John with a warning. Remember, he said, this magic will take something from you as well. John brushed off the warning, too excited about his future to think about any consequences. As the herbalist finished the ritual, John felt a rush of energy as though his entire body was changing. He left the hut feeling victorious, confident that he had finally taken control of his fate. Over the next few weeks, strange things began to happen. Peace, who had always been successful, started to experience one problem after another. Her business deals fell through, Clients cancelled their contracts, and her money seemed to vanish faster than she could count. She tried to understand what was going wrong, but no matter what she did, her luck only seemed to get worse. As Peace's life fell apart, John's life began to transform. His business, which had always struggled, started booming. New clients came in, his profits soared, and he finally felt like he was living the life he had always dreamed of. For the first time, he was the one everyone admired. He threw lavish parties, bought expensive clothes, and basked in his newfound wealth. Peace was heartbroken, feeling as though the universe had turned against her. She hoped John would be there to support her, but he was too busy enjoying his own success. He barely noticed her struggles and cared only about himself. One night, after drinking too much at one of his parties, John tripped on the stairs and fell hard, hurting his leg. At first he thought it was just a bruise, but as days went by, the pain grew worse. His leg began to swell, and the skin turned a sickly colour. He went to the hospital and doctors tried to treat him, but the injury only grew more painful and infected. The doctors couldn't understand why his leg wasn't healing. Eventually, they told him they had no choice but to amputate or cut off his leg to stop the infection from spreading. John was terrified, but he agreed, hoping that the surgery would end his suffering. As he lay in his hospital bed, John thought about the herbalist's warning that the magic would take something from him. He began to realize that his suffering was the price of his jealousy and greed. He had taken Peace's wealth, but in doing so, he had lost his health. But the nightmare didn't end with his leg. Soon after the surgery, the infection returned and began spreading to his other leg. The doctors were at a loss, and no medicine seemed to help. John's health continued to decline, and he grew weaker and weaker. Lying in his hospital bed, filled with regret and fear, John knew he couldn't keep his secret any longer. He was haunted by guilt, and he knew that he had to tell Peace the truth before it was too late. One evening, Peace visited him in the hospital. She looked tired and sad, her face showing the strain of everything she had been through. John looked into her eyes, feeling the weight of his betrayal. With tears streaming down his face, he told her everything about his jealousy, the visit to the herbalist, and how he had used her hair to steal her fortune. She looked at him, her eyes wide with disbelief and pain. You did this to me?" Her voice broke, and tears began to stream down her face. "All this time, I thought it was just bad luck, that maybe I had done something wrong. But it was you. You took everything from me." John reached out, his voice choked with remorse. "Peace, I'm so sorry. I was blinded by my jealousy. I didn't understand the consequences. Please forgive me." But Peace shook her head, her face pale with anger and sorrow. "Forgive you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "You took my success, my security, and turned my life upside down, all because you couldn't bear to see me happy. I was there for you, John. I loved you and did everything I could to help you. And this is how you repay me?" Without another word, Peace turned and walked out of the hospital room, leaving him alone in his misery. She didn't look back, not once, as she left the man she had once loved, the man who had betrayed her so completely. John was left alone, the weight of his guilt crushing him as he realized that he had lost the one person who had ever truly cared for him. After leaving John, Peace worked hard to rebuild her life. She was heartbroken and had lost so much, but she refused to give up. Peace continued to pray every day, seeking strength, healing, and the courage to start anew. Though her heart was heavy, she found comfort in her faith, hoping that one day she would be free of the darkness John had brought into her life. Slowly, she began to regain her strength. Her business started to recover, and she found peace in helping others. As for John, his condition continued to worsen. The infection spread throughout his body, and he grew weaker each day until he finally passed away, alone and filled with regret. His story became a cautionary tale in the community, a reminder of the terrible cost of jealousy and greed. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this. Thank you for watching and see you next time.